Hi friends, my name is Emily, welcome back to my channel. Today I am refilming my February wrap-up because I lost the footage. February was a great reading month in terms of the quality of the text that I read, not so much in terms of the quantity, and I will get to that at the end of the video. I'm going to be doing a little life update and talking about the things that I did in February. I am going to start out by talking about the books because that's what this channel is. So for those of you who haven't been following along, February was Black History Month, and so I chose to read only books by Black authors during the month of February. So I did only manage to read 2 books by Black authors. So the first one being The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. So this is the first book in the Inheritance trilogy, and I did do a whole video giving my thoughts on this book, and I will link that in the cards and down below. This is the book that my patrons voted on for me to read and review and discuss. The 100,000 Kingdoms is a fantasy novel. I'm gonna pronounce her name wrong because I looked it up initially on one source and then got corrected in the comments, and I can't for the life of me remember what it is now because in my head it's the thing that I looked up to begin with. And that is Nnedi. That is what I've been calling her. It is probably going to be impossible to unlearn that. You pronounce it how you want it. So Nnedi is the granddaughter of the Aramari king, and she is very estranged from her maternal family because her mother, who was the king of the world, that is literally what they think of themselves as, the rulers of the world, the king of the world's daughter ran away from his kingdom and married somebody from the fringes of society. That union produced Nnedi, and so she's always been estranged from her maternal family. And then shortly after her mother's death, she is called by her grandfather to the kingdom, and she goes not really knowing what to expect, and when she gets there, he names her heir. The catch is, she is one of 3 heirs now competing for the throne. And so she ends up thrown into a lot of these really political situations. We get a lot of critique of the society that she finds herself in. There's also this like other subplot happening in which the fallen gods are enslaved to the Aramari. Nnedi ends up sort of agreeing to work with them and gets all twisted up in their plots. And I thought it was a really fun novel. I really enjoyed the world building. I know from the comments that that's not the case for everybody. I like the idea of gods being more tangible and humans interacting with them. I feel like gods are something we see a lot of in fantasy literature, and so to get this really diverse, tangible cast of gods I thought was really interesting. And overall, I really enjoyed the book. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on it, again, I will leave the link to that video. The other book that I read in the month of February by a Black author was the complete Binti trilogy by Nnedi Okorafor. So I have read Akatawitch by Nnedi Okorafor, which is young adult fantasy, and I loved it. And so I was very excited to try Binti. Now this is actually a bind-up of 3 novellas, so if we want to count and like be generous, I read 4 books. Binti is the story of this really intelligent harmonizer who is part of a community, part of a marginalized community on the edge of a desert that is really quite religious and inward facing. When they experience conflict or trouble, they turn inwards and seek the community opposed to outwards. What Binti wants more than anything is to attend this university on another planet, and so because she knows her family will never approve, she leaves in secret, boards a ship, and begins the space journey to the university planet. And on the way, the ship is attacked by a species of alien called the Medusa, and the Medusa are in conflict with the sort of majority population on Binti's planet, the Kush. This is no spoiler, it's in the dust jacket. The Medusa attack all the Kush on the ship, leaving Binti the only survivor, and as a harmonizer, she has an ability to connect with other people, and so she ends up harmonizing and connecting with the Medusa and acting as their ambassador for when they arrive to this planet, negotiating the reason for the conflict to begin with, solving that conflict, and then beginning life on this planet with a new Medusa friend. Much of this book explores identity, explores culture, explores the narratives that we are told about things, and how truth often differs from the popular narratives. So Binti is constantly put into situations that allow her to grow and develop and think differently, and I really enjoyed that. In many ways, you can see how this can be abstracted to our own society and the ways in which we have certain narratives baked into us depending on where we are in the world, who raises us, how we grow up, how we're educated, how challenging it can be to be faced with the untruths of these narratives, and how important this work is. And so I really, really enjoyed Binti. I feel like if you are a Trekkie, because I am a Trekkie, well, the Next Generation and Voyager, I think if you are a Trekkie and you are already here for narratives around exploration, cultural exchange, thinking differently, that sort of stuff, I think Binti will actually speak to you quite a bit. If you are interested in discussions around Afrofuturism, because this book on university courses is included in discussions of Afrofuturism, I feel like this could be a really interesting place to start thinking about Afrofuturism and sort of begin your own research and reading there. I loved it. Highly recommend it, and I hope that Nnedi Okorafor continues to write in the space of this space university, because like it just sounds so fascinating, and I feel like I understand like each of the novellas are little contained things in and of themselves, but I feel like there's definitely room for this to be fleshed out quite a bit, and I would so be here for it if it were to happen. So the third book that I did read is part of a larger project that spans throughout 2019 for me, and that is the goal of reading 6 German books this year. That is 1 book every 2 months. It just so happened that during Black History Month, I finished Die Mitte der Welt by Andreas Steinhöffel. This is a piece of queer young adult fiction, although I feel like when it was published in 1998, young adult didn't exist as a marketing category in the same way it does now. But our protagonist is a teenager, and this is about his experiences with love and him becoming, I guess, just more worldly. This is the story of Phil, who falls in love with Nicholas. This is the first time that he falls in love, and he falls hard. It also delves into his family life. So his mother was a young mother. She came from America to Germany to reconnect with her older sister. When she gets there, it turns out her sister is dead and has willed this giant old crumbling manor house to her. If Glass already wasn't an outsider enough as a pregnant American teenager, she now lives in this giant crumbling house on the edge of town. Much of this is looking at the relationship that Phil has with his mother, who is somewhat unconventional. So I've watched the film by Jakob M. Ervas. I've watched the filmic adaptation, and that's actually how I came to this book. I loved the filmic adaptation. The film feels like a summer film. The book feels like a winter book. The book is a lot darker and a little bit more magical and mysterious, and has some really truly bizarre and horrific moments in it. Like, for example, when as a child, Phil's godmother, Teresa, I don't know if she's officially his godmother, but she sort of serves the role as godmother. Phil's godmother, Teresa, her father passes away, and he is this like green burial nut, and he wants to be buried in his garden, no casket, no nothing, just him going back into the dirt. And that is of course not allowed. And so after the body is embalmed and set in its casket, Teresa, Glass, and the children, because you can't leave young children alone unsupervised, break into the funeral home, drug the mortician so that he falls asleep. They load the casket with potatoes and steal her father's corpse to, I guess, live out his wish of being buried in his garden. And that was just this super, like, bizarre and dark moment that I don't think would translate well to film. Like, at the same time that it was really dark, was kind of hilarious and absurd, and so I loved the book as a reading experience. So I did finish this in the month of February as well. That is an end to the update on the books that I read in February. So if you're done with the books, you don't care about the life update, let me know in the comments down below. Have you read any of these books? What did you think of these books? If you're interested in the life update, here we go. In the month of February, I did a lot of new things that shook up my routine in ways that I hadn't exactly anticipated, and so February has been about, I guess, learning how to restructure my time. First of all, I picked up more shifts at work. Not the overwhelming amount of shifts that I opened myself up to before. When I first started at Indigo, I had complete open availability because I was trying to pay off my student debt. And once I paid off my student debt, I never relinquished that, and so would frequently be assigned stretches of 9 to 11 days straight. I did look it up. It is legal, depending on how many hours off you have before or after like a long stretch like that. Although it is a lot, it is legal. And so because I had open availability and I never said anything, I did have a lot of long stretches like that, and when you're getting up at 5 a.m. every day, it really shrinks your world. You can't do a lot of adult things. You can't see your friends on weekends, really, because you don't have weekends. If you work in retail, you know that you don't have weekends. You have a day off here, a day off there. If you want 2 consecutive days, you have to book them off. That amount of labor was overwhelming, and so I did reduce my hours a little bit in an attempt to just normalize my life and function a little bit more like a normal human. And so I'm slowly increasing my hours again, not to the point of unlimited availability, but to the point that the work feels manageable and that I can still do things that I'm passionate about, like making YouTube videos. And one of the things that I have also endeavored to do is to be compensated for this work that I do, because I feel like, maybe not videos like this, but there are things that I am passionate about that I would love to create, like the Dark Tower series, like sharing my MA dissertation, like a Sex and YA series, more in-depth discussion videos that require more time and more labor. I decided to ask for financial help with that, and so I launched a Patreon at the beginning of last month, February 1st, that went live. I did receive support there, which was wonderful and so encouraging. So even though my life got busier in terms of increasing my workload, I also felt so much more motivated to know that people were here for this content and were willing to support this content, because the funds coming in from Patreon are not enough to equal a part-time job. But there is enough funds at this point to allocate extra hours and justify extra hours to not only myself, but to folks around me. Like, I can now put into making long-form content and doing special things. Having the funds from Patreon is enabling me to do things like that. On the one hand, I am being supported for the work that I do, which is excellent, because even though these YouTube videos are monetized, they do not bring in consistent monthly revenue. YouTube only pays you when you hit the $100 threshold, and this channel does not hit $100 very often. The downside to this was the learning curve. I have never used Patreon. It was a lot of like reading the internal Patreon provided articles to learn how to do things, to learn how to use the system to my advantage, and to make it flow logically and easily for my patrons. It was every time I ran into a problem, like Googling and trying to figure out what went wrong and like the amount of time that eats up in the initial learning curve was something that I didn't anticipate. So the first month of Patreon was a learning curve for me, and I am so thankful for everyone who stuck around and who continued their patronage into March, because I feel like the more I use the system, the better I will get at it. Already, I feel like in March, there is less random hours lost to researching and futzing around with Patreon programming to try and do the thing that I want to do. My hope is that during March, with these skills sort of coming together, that I will be able to do more reading. Thank you for being patient with me, and thank you for your support, because that has been phenomenal. The other thing that I undertook in February is dance lessons. So for Christmas, my partner got us a trial package for ballroom dance classes. The cool thing about ballroom is that it is an artistic activity that the two of us can do together. And not in the way that like taking a painting class is doing something together. Sitting next to each other and chatting in the same space is fun, but it is very different than partaking in an activity where the two of us are physically dependent on each other. So it's a lot of us learning about small body cues and small differences that impact how we function together as a team. And it's just such a unique activity and such a unique skill that we decided to sign up for a 6-month course together to become social ease dancers. It's exciting to learn a new skill together. It's exciting to have this really unique experience. And again, that is another thing that sort of, I didn't anticipate eating into my time, but like right off the bat, they try and put your lessons as close together as possible. Now moving forward over the next 5 months, our lessons are once a week. Initially, they had us in like 2 to 3 times a week because they want you to develop muscle memory. Just like in a blink of an eye, February was over. And I mean, February only has like 3 less days than most months. And for whatever reason, it was just gone. All of a sudden, February was gone. The fourth thing that I did in March was begin meeting with a pal about a podcast. So this is not the podcast that I was planning on. I'm still gonna hold that topic close because I think when things sort of get into a rhythm with this podcast, I might still start up a second podcast because why not? I like chaos, apparently. A friend reached out to me and was like, so I have this crazy idea. What do you think? And I was like, that sounds like it might work. Let's meet up and discuss this. And so we actually read a book. We read All My Puny Sorrows by Miriam Taves, and we got together to sort of test out what the two of us having a conversation about a text would be like. And we've decided not to record that podcast because our discussion over coffee was just really organic and natural and good, and I don't, like, neither of us wants to force the recreation of that. Came up with ideas for what we want to talk about, then met back up again and talked about various episode ideas and what we're personally interested in and how we can see this working. This Friday, March 8th, I believe, yeah, International Women's Day, we are meeting up to record our first podcast together. I'm just so incredibly excited about this podcast, and I know it feels like maybe, Emily, you're biting off more than you can chew. I feel like I am just so excited and passionate about the things that I'm currently working on. Like, why not ride this momentum, this wave of excitement about these projects while I'm here, right? This wave of excitement is spilling over into everything. I sleep with a notebook now because I just have all of these exciting ideas rolling around in my head and I need to capture them, and like I'm turning them into things, and it is wonderful to be in this place. Like this time last year was really shitty, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm in such a different place, such a good place right now. That is the life update. Thank you guys for listening to me ramble if you've stuck around. Do let me know your thoughts on the books, the few books that I did read. Let me know your thoughts on any of the life update things. How is your 2019 going so far? Before we go, I don't know where my chalkboard is. Oh, shit. All right. This is the only thing that I could find. This is actually an advertisement for feminist sex toys. But it's pretty, so I framed it. Before we go, we have to thank my patrons. Thank you, patrons, for enabling me to do the work that I do. Thank you for your support throughout the month of February, for being with me through this learning curve, for being really encouraging. You have no idea how encouraging it is to have people say yes, what you're doing is worth it. I am willing to support you with my dollars. That is just mind-boggling. Thank you guys for your support. I am so excited to continue to make things for you guys. I think I've held up the sex toy advertisement for long enough. Yeah, if you want to help make these videos possible, help keep these creative projects going, Patreon is a great way to do that. I personally feel that the arts do have value, but it is hard to see that reflected in the job market. So I'm trying to find other ways to do these things. If you want to sign up for that, I will hopefully have linked it on the end screen here. I really gotta make an end screen so that I don't have to stand here and babble. Anyways, I will not delete this footage this time. I will edit it and upload it like the creator that I am. Bye!